Michelle, Zip2 Green has advocated that you drain the sediment from your water tank because I'm told that that increases the corrosion of the water tank and makes it less efficient and decreases its lifespan. Can you speak to that?
I actually can. What happens is as the water heater ages, there's a rod in there called an anode rod. It's usually made out of like magnesium or something like that. And once that starts to disintegrate, the sediment builds up in the bottom of the heater. And then what happens is as the heater is trying to heat, that burner has to get through all that sediment to get to the water to heat the water itself. Flushing it as long as the heater was installed new and you maintain it once a year and flush the heater once a year, that's great. That's highly recommended because it will help keep the sediment out. If it's an older model heater and you decide that you want to just start flushing it, we don't really recommend that as the heater ages, and if the sediment is deep enough, that can be the only thing keeping your water heater on an older heater from leaking.
So how do you replace that rod?
It's easy to replace the rod. More than likely your plumber would have to come out and see what brand of water heater you have, because sometimes the rods are brand specific. And what happens is they come out, they take the old one out, they screw the new one in, and now you have a new anode that will attract particles and try to help reduce sediment buildup on the bottom of the heater as well.
Now when they come to replace the rod, do they determine if there's a lot of sediment at the time, or what happens with that
Honestly,
sediment?
unless they have some kind of a scope that they can put down in there that will see through the water, it's really hard to tell. Usually heaters that are more than 5 years old that have never been flushed will normally have at least a minimal amount of sediment, and the older they get, the more that sediment's going to pile up. We actually had one that we cut open not that long ago, and there was about 2 inches of sediment on the bottom of the heater. It was 11 years old.
Now, when you have the rod installed, should you at that time start flushing your heater once a year?
No.
No. Why not?
Not unless you've been flushing it the whole time, because just because you replace the anode rod doesn't mean that you don't have that sediment on the bottom. And that sediment, like I said earlier, could be the only thing keeping your water heater from leaking if it's an older heater. Also, depending on the age of the heater, don't recommend replacing the anode rod if the heater, I would say, is more than 8 years old. If it's more than 8 years old, it's more than likely outside of its warranty period, and it can be cost inhibitive to replace that anode rod because the rods themselves are not cheap.
Now, how expensive are the rods?
I couldn't say specifically, but
range.
I would say to get it and have it installed somewhere $200 to $300 when you could buy a new water heater for a couple hundred more.
So what's the lifespan of a typical water heater?
The lifespan or the warranty period of a typical water heater is 6 years. That's what they warranty it for. The brand that we use, we have seen last anywhere from 10 to 18 years.